Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Fernando Rodriguez. You might know me. I'm the Director of Public Services for the City of Dania Beach. This is our last formal workshop for the Stormwater Master Plan. As you may be aware, some of you may be aware, we've had several workshops prior to this one, this being the final one. And the master plan, as you will hear shortly from our presenters, from Chen Moore and Associates. The master plan is almost finished. We're having this workshop as our last public input session. So thank you all for coming. I see the crowd is a little smaller than last time. I guess that's the weather and the 60-degree temperatures, which we're not used to. One day notice. Okay. I wasn't aware of that. I know we've had those flyers, 8.5 by 11 flyers since last commission meeting on Tuesday, but I don't know about the notice online. That part I don't know. Thank you for letting us know. But I think the weather may have contributed as well. Be that as it may, here we are. Thank you for coming again. And this master plan is encompasses 10 areas of study or study areas throughout the city of Dania Beach. This plan, the areas of study exclude the current projects that we're working on, including 34th Terrace near Griffith Road, including the Southeast Drainage Project. Those are excluded. These are other areas that the Chen Moore consulting team, who has a great background in drainage engineering, has been working on for the past over a year, right? A couple of years, right? So Jennifer Smith is here, along with some of her colleagues. She will be presenting a PowerPoint, like we did last time, and she will be outlining the study areas and the progress that we've been making, and some of the findings. Basically, this stormwater master plan will result in study areas that will have to be designed, engineering designed, and then bid out as the priorities dictate and funding dictates, so we can address those areas. But it's a roadmap for additional projects, drainage projects throughout the city. And without any further ado.
All right, thank you, Fernando, and good evening, everyone. So for those that might have not been able to attend some of the prior ones, I'm just gonna kind of start off giving just a brief introduction of what is stormwater, kind of how we ultimately created this stormwater model, and then ultimately get into those capital improvement projects that Fernando alluded to. All right, so some city facts. This is the project limits that we have of the city: over 8 square miles, 31,000 residents, a lot of canal waterways. So that was a big component of our stormwater model. We want to make sure we're modeling all of the canals that are connected via the tidal, via the ocean, and then 26 miles of the drainage infrastructure. So those are all the pipes and inlets that connect the city roadways and your neighborhoods to those canal systems. So basically, how does stormwater work, right? So we have rainfall that occurs. We'd ideally want it in a swale or a retention area for storage. That's where we want the water stored, off of the roadways into the swales and storage areas that can infiltrate and percolate back down into the groundwater. From there, as it overtops over those swales, we can go into the drainage inlets that ultimately connect falls, all of those canals that we just talked about. So what are the stormwater constraints here for the city? We have aging infrastructure. This is the oldest city here in Broward County, so we have a lot of older pipes out there that are just not efficiently and effectively working, that either they could be collapsed, they could be debris in them, or just really undersized. So we also have low surface elevation. So this is your roadways and how low-lying they are compared to the canal elevations, compared to groundwater elevations. So the lower the surface is that we have of the roadway, we really can't store a lot. We can't, create those swales and those retention areas very deep because of the high groundwater table and the low surface that we have. So that's also a constraint that we have, and what improvements we can do here is limited by that low surface elevation. And we also have sea level rise, I'm sure everyone's heard of. So because of all of those canal systems and how everything is interconnected tidally, as the high tide occurs, then the sea levels occur higher and they could overtop some of the seawalls. So we also are limited on what we can discharge and how we can discharge to those canals when those sea levels is higher. So these are some constraints we have that we're aware of, that we're trying to address in some of these stormwater improvements that we're going to recommend. So first off, we did a model. This is a stormwater model. Some of the steps that we took to prepare the model, we had identify the topographic area. So this is basically, ultimately, this is just a snippet of, I think we have US 1 on the left there, kind of the I guess, was it Griffin to the north, Sterling to the south. So this is just a snippet of one portion of the city that we're going to just demonstrate in some of these exhibits. But ultimately, this is the surface. So you see, the higher areas, US 1, in that darker brown area. And then as you get to a lower green color, that's the lower lying elevation. So all of the surface topography is imported into the model. And then we also have on the image to the right is all of your pipe and how the system is interconnected for the drainage system. So we already have a lot of that city-owned infrastructure, a lot of inlets, a lot of pipes, all of the outfalls. So all of that is also imported into the model to see how the stormwater runoff is connected between all of the adjacent neighborhoods. So next we have the image number 3 labeled there. We delineate basins. So ultimately how all of those neighborhoods are connected are individual basins. So imagine, its own little bowl, if you will. So all of the rainfall that occurs in that basin will stay in that basin and only connect via pipes or over ground, over like a roadway per se. So the image to the right is the nodal diagram, and what's created in the model. You'll see a lot of little lines. Those are all the links of how each of these basins are connected. We'll have pipe interconnection and we'll have the overland flow, basically a roadway, and all of those and how all of these basins are interconnected with all of these different links. Ultimately, that's the creation of a stormwater model. So from the results of the stormwater model, actually, I'm going to jump to the next slide just to kind of show you the number 1 image here. Is ultimately we have that whole model created and we throw a certain storm event on it. So for example, this one is a 10-year storm event, about 8.5 inches of rainfall, and it shows the deeper blue color is where more water will sit on the road. So we have what we're going to call the peak stage. We'll see how much water falls on different roadways during a certain storm event. And then the image to the right is basically how we're classifying and really categorizing, I guess, if you will, the different vulnerability of all of these different areas. So again, this is just a snippet. We're not showing the entire city limits here. This is just an example of what we did and how we categorized it. So the darker the darker red color is showing more depth of flooding, a higher depth of flooding. And then we go to orange, and then yellow, then green is showing not as much flooding. So if I go back to this other image here, these are the different kind of categories of how we prioritize that. The different vulnerability is what we're calling it. So those red basins is the highest basins that show exceeding 1 foot of flooding from a 10-year storm event. So we're throwing 8 inches on it, but because it's the lowest lying area, there's actually more than 1 foot of flooding on those roadways. And then the orange basins is between 1/2 foot to 1 foot of flooding. And then it goes, yellow basins and then green basins are kind of under 1/2 foot. So ultimately, when we did this model, we're trying to identify what's those highest and high basins that has the most vulnerability to stormwater flooding. And that's what we're identifying and kind of prioritizing for moving forward with a stormwater improvement project. It's also important to note at the bottom here, we only looked at city-owned right-of-way. So if it was county or state-owned or privately owned, we didn't analyze those basins and those roadways under this analysis because we're looking to see how can we implement stormwater projects with city funds and reduce the flooding in city-owned right-of-ways. So knowing those different categories, the red basins are the highest, the orange are the highs. Those are the ones we tried to basically, we need to make improvements, and those are the higher ranked vulnerability basins. So knowing that, and now we have all of those highest and high categorized basins, we were ultimately able to group those together into what we're calling study areas. So we identified 10 total study areas throughout the whole city that we have shown here in these blue hatches. That's what we're recommending for stormwater improvements at this phase, at this stage, because that's where those highest vulnerable areas, those are the heaviest flooding, the heaviest depth of flooding, between over 6 inches of flooding, almost sometimes over a foot of flooding, and they also have, they flood for a long duration. So ultimately, this next step, so this is kind of what we presented on the last presentation. We kind of got to this point. So now we're going to identify, what capital improvement projects, what can we do to improve these 10 areas? And I also wanted to preface that it doesn't mean if you are not in these study areas that nothing's going to happen in your neighborhood. This is really just a start. This is kind of just a guide for the city. A lot of funding can come from having a stormwater master plan. So this is really just that first step to help the city, get the funding, kind of just guide them on where to start working on some improvements and some stormwater improvements. So if you're outside of this area, still be vocal, still let the city know of what your concerns are. This is really, again, based on purely the model results to know, okay, these streets that are very long, it's over, 1,000 feet of roadway, flood over a foot, those roads got identified with a higher priority. Yep. So this is actually the entire city limits. So I don't know. Do I have a pointer? I don't know if I have a pointer on here. Yeah, so yes, this is the entire city limits. So you kind of see 95 is pretty much right in the center of this map. So we're going to have, let's see, 5 study areas to the west of 95 and another 5 study areas east of 95. The next few slides are going to be zooming into each of these study areas. Okay, so now that we know those are the study areas we want to look at, we're trying to analyze and identify what improvements can help the flooding in those areas. So ultimately, what is our objective? We want to decrease the flooding depth as well as the duration. So think of, maybe I still have 6 inches of flooding, but instead of it flooding for 24 hours, it's only flooding for 2 hours. So a goal really in looking at these different alternatives that I'm going to be speaking on, that's really our goal, is looking at the depth of flooding and the duration to get it to a more acceptable level of service. So next, we looked at all of those different study areas, and really we tried to identify a score for each of those study areas to be able to rank all 10 of them. We looked at, again, the depth of over the right-of-way, that duration, again, how long is it flooding in that right-of-way and in that roadway, and then, again, the length. So is it only flooded for 10 feet or is it flooded for 1,000 feet? So that also was a component into this formula to score these different capital improvement projects. And then we also looked at, the city gave us some observations and looked at flooding frequency and kind of helped guide us in some of their observations to help with that formula. And ultimately, this became the ranking of those 10 study areas. So next, this is the different alternatives that we looked at, let's say, we're going to add a new pipe, we're going to add a pump station. So I'm going to kind of briefly walk through each of these things that we threw into the model for each of these 10 study areas. And then at the end, we identified what was that best result. Because ultimately, we want to make sure we invest the money correctly. We want to make sure, don't put a pump station if it doesn't provide the best, reduction of flooding. So some of the things we looked at, new drainage pipe. So as we kind of talked about in the beginning, the water's falling on the road. We want to make sure we can guide it and direct it out to those canals. So piping is the best way to do that. We looked at exfiltration trench as just a method. We'd have a perforated pipe and then let that water seep back down into the groundwater. So this is a good candidate when our groundwater is a little bit lower than our pipe elevation. We looked at backflow preventers. So we kind of talked about, the canal and sea level rise. We want to make sure that water, as the canal is raising, we don't want that to come back into our roadway. So these items are called backflow preventers. They're actually installed at the outfall to make sure that water doesn't come back up into the roadway. The city's actually already been implementing and installing a lot of these at a lot of the outfalls. So we're just including those in our model to make sure that that's, a preferred option. We also talked about the benefit of the retention areas and swales. Really, if we can provide additional storage in some of these areas and neighborhoods, then that water can be stored and not all of it has to go out to the canals. So we recommended and analyzed some of these retention areas just to provide more storage, water quality, help percolate back into groundwater, and then once it fills up, then we can discharge it to the canals.
Questions during, or should I wait till the end?
You can go ahead.
Swales. I live at 325 11th Terrace, right across from Olson School. Now, I don't know if you know that we have swales in the back of our condos. You're familiar with those?
Not off the top of my head. I'd have to look at a map.
Okay, no problem. Then I'll let it go.
Okay. But no, swales are very important just because it can provide that additional storage. And a lot of times the residents, don't like them. They fill up, they get mosquitoes, it's hard to mow. But really, if we can capture that storage and that runoff, so right now, just picture everything's paved. You have a huge, roadway, it's all paved. All of that water is going to a canal. If we can capture it and try to percolate it back into the surface, into the groundwater, provide additional storage before we run it off, then that's less. That's just discharging to the canal. It's providing water quality. So there are definitely a lot of benefits to swales.
And Meadowbrook Lakes. I've shown the city where the water from the street is going into our storage well. I've showed the city that many times.
Okay.
I've had it anyway. I have done that. So what is going to prevent from them to stop doing that?
I guess I'd have to look at that particular instance, but for the most part, typically a swale we like to see at the side of the road. So you'd have kind of this image right here. You'd have a city-owned roadway here, and you'd want the water captured. Obviously, this is, a lot of leaves, but we'd want grass there so that the runoff can be captured in the swale before it discharges to the pipe. So in your swale before the sidewalk is still city property. It's called right of way. I know I've been talking about that a lot.
Hi. Yeah, I also live off of 11th Terrace in the Meadowbrooks. And one of my concerns is I live on the 4th floor. So I don't get the flood right away, but the flood does go into the elevator, which I can't use anymore. So I have to take stairs to the 4th floor, and I can't because I have a bad heart. So it gets so bad over there that all of last year when I first moved there, I had to stay at my son's house in Pembroke Pines. He no longer lives there. So I'm really concerned, about that whole 11th Street right in front of the school, because it does get really bad and there's a lot of cars that get stalled there. So I don't know if that's inside that that whole map that you just put up, because I just got here a little while ago, so.
Okay. I could definitely check that out maybe right after. Let me kind of walk through. Let me finish the presentation if that's okay. And I'll just walk through those improvements. Okay, so yeah, a swale. So if you picture the edge of the pavement, right, the edge of the roadway stops, and then but your property line, typically on a single family house, your property line starts, past the sidewalk. That portion between the edge of pavement to that sidewalk is what's called a swale. So yeah, we sometimes it's just, it's not really graded to collect water. Sometimes it's just all paved. Some properties just pave the entire driveway, that whole area that's their property. That we don't want. That's just going to run off back into the roadway. So we want that storage. If you kind of see the little hole that looks down like in that image, that's the pipe that's going under the driveway. So we'd want that area with all the leaves, where all the leaves are, that's where your swale is. So we want it graded to be able to capture the runoff from the road. So picture the water falling on the road right now. We want it to be, collected off of the roadway. Okay. Yeah, let me finish wrapping this up, and then we can take more questions. And then pump stations is a big one, because as we talked about, as sea level rise occurs, we have those pipes to the canals, but if the sea level's high and our roadway's high, there's nowhere for the water to go. It's not going to go out unless it's pumped. It's got to be forced out. So pump stations was another alternative we looked at. Drainage wells. So this is a way to pump the water back down into the groundwater. So this was a good candidate in certain locations. And then raising the seawall. So obviously if the sea level rise gets that high that it's overtopping the seawall, no matter what size pump station you put in, the water is just going to keep overtopping the seawall. So there are some locations where we would recommend raising the seawalls. That's going to be a long-term phase, because a lot of the seawalls in a lot of these areas are owned by the private, residents. So there is, we're looking at policies and codes and trying to, again, look for grants to help the residents in raising those seawalls. That's definitely an alternative that we looked at. Okay, so our first CIP area, so this is off of Griffin Road out west, just before 441. So this is just one of the neighborhoods that, again, we grouped these basins together, and we looked at what we're calling CIPs as a capital improvement project. So we're recommending, if you could kind of see, I know it's a little hard to see, but there's the green dots and lines are existing infrastructure, and the purplish pink color is all proposed. So, and also, sorry, on 34th Terrace, we're including, there's an upcoming project on 34th Terrace. So we did include that in the model as existing infrastructure, just because it's planned in the near future. But ultimately, this is what we're proposing gravity pipes. That backflow preventer is what we talked about at the outfall. We don't want the water to come back up and in the city roads. Certain locations, we want to raise the roadways. We also talked about those pump stations are also called lift stations. So if you see lift and pump, they're interchangeable. But ultimately, we need to pump the water out. These are, certain streets are lower lying, and if no matter what pipe we put in, if the sea level, like I said, the seawall and the sea level and the roadway, if they're the same elevation, that water's not going to get out. So we need to pump it. So for this particular area, and these are very similar as we look through all of the CIPs, I'm going to scroll through. This one in particularly, all of the construction costs to design it, permit it, and build it is roughly $9 million. This, we did not look at we did not price the seawall improvements here, because that's more of a long-term phased improvement, because all of these are all private property. And again, I guess I know that's a huge sticker shock looking at some of these prices, but having this plan and documented will help the city be lined up for grant funding. There's a lot of agencies, state, federal, there's a lot of grants out there. So having these documents in here saying, this is a priority, this is what needs to be installed, the city can take this and go request funding, and that can help, alleviate some of these high price tags we have. So that's the CIP number 1. Number 2, this is south of Griffin. So between, south of Griffin and east of State Road 7. You have 40th, Southwest 40th over there. So you have Lake George at the top. There is some projects going on here that the city has. So we're just trying to interconnect those existing projects and really trying to get everything to flow into Lake George to discharge out of the residential neighborhoods here. So again, gravity pipes, those backflow preventers, exfiltration trench is a good candidate in some of those. That's where the pipe will be perforated and allow the water to get back into the groundwater. Again, the lift stations, this one's just over 15 million. And again, the price tag obviously is bigger. The bigger the size of the area, we need to cover and pipe a lot of this, all the city right away, and we need to pipe it all and get it to the outfall, which would be Lake George, which is again interconnected under Griffin Road to the Dania Cutoff Canal. Number 3, we have up to the north, more off of 84 and Ravenswood. We have a couple roadways here that have some heavy flooding and really no outlet. There's no interconnectivity for where it to go. It's more industrial over in this area, but it was categorized high just because of that, again, that length of roadway and that depth of flooding, that this was still categorized as a study area. So we have gravity pipes, raised roads, again, those pump stations. This one's costing 7.2 million. And all of this will be available on websites. I know it might be hard to see, but we'll post all of this on the city website after this meeting. This one's Southwest 3rd Avenue. So this one is, south of Dania Beach Boulevard. So that kind of rectangle area you see is south of Dania Beach Boulevard and east of US 1. So this is adjacent to another city project that the city is doing, the Southeast Neighborhood Project. So this is just north of it. So we're trying to collect it all. There's really no canal system nearby. So our plan would be to pump everything north to the Dania Cutoff Canal. So we can collect all of that water there and discharge it to the canal. We have gravity pipes, again, backflow preventers, the lift station, and drainage wells. This one's 7 million. This one we're calling college home sites. So this one you kind of see towards the bottom, the east-west corridor is Sterling Road, and this is the corridor all the way to the right is US 1. So that's where this one's located. This one's also kind of, if you envision like a bowl, so all of this water really doesn't have anywhere to go. We have US 1's a little higher, and then you have the canal to the west there. So we really just need to capture all of that and pump everything to the canal. So we're recommending gravity pipes, backflow preventers, raised roads. This one will have some FDOT connection onto Sterling Road. Again, those pump station and drainage wells. Davis Isles is north of Griffin, almost all the way to 441, just east of 441. This one is a smaller one, but it still does observe a lot of flooding. So this one's still triggered in our formula, if you will. So we recommend additional gravity pipes, backflow preventers, and again, we need to pump that water out. This is just low lying, that no matter how many big pipes we have, that the canal water is going to be too high when the sea level rise occurs, that the water can't get out. So we need to add those pump stations. This one's costing 4 million. This one's Tropical Haven. So we have Griffin Road to the south here. So this one, Southwest 42nd Avenue. The street names are very small here. So yeah, again, very similar, just they're all canal system, all finger canaled. So we really just, again, need to pipe and pump those water out. So we have additional pipes, backflow preventers, raised roads, and pump stations, just under 6 million. This one's out east. We're calling Point Siena Park. So this one is Just north of Dania Beach Boulevard, east of US 1. So this, again, if you kind of picture that bowl idea where really the water doesn't have anywhere to go here. We have the Dania Cutoff Canal to the north, but really not a lot of outfalls to it. So we're trying to collect all of the water that falls here and pump it north. Because Dania Beach Boulevard is also very low lying. We don't want to connect there and cause more flooding on Dania Beach Boulevard. We want to get it pumped north. So additional pipe interconnections and pump stations going north to the canal, as well as drainage wells, just over 9 million here. Next one, Royal Palm Vista. So this one is, yeah, just adjacent to Dania Beach Boulevard. It's actually just adjacent to the prior one we just looked at, just to the east of it. So again, very similar scenario. We don't want to flood Dania Beach Boulevard. We need to pump that water north out of this neighborhood. So additional pipe interconnections, backflow preventers, raised roads, pump stations, and drainage wells. Just under 9 million here. And I think the last one on our list, Malaluca Gardens. So this one is just north. So you see the Dania Beach, the Dania Cutoff Canal kind of on the bottom there, curving, and we have Griffin Road to the north. So again, lots of little finger inlets. So we really kind of all these little bowls, if you will, for all of these basins. So we really need to get the water collected and pump it out. So again, just the gravity pipes, the backflow preventers, exfiltration trench where we can, where the water table and the roadway is a little higher, raising the roads, lift stations, and the drainage wells. This one's costing the 7 million. So in summary, those are basically what we modeled. We modeled a lot of different alternatives, but those were the best results that we could reduce the flooding depth, duration, and provide that best result to the city and to the residents. So in summary, those are the 10 we kind of briefly went through. As you know, any questions we can kind of dive in further. This is the total cost for everything. But like I said, we're going to take this and really look for grants, look for that funding, and which really is our next step. So this is kind of where we are right now in our project. Oh, I did want to highlight some additional, improvements that we could do outside of these 10 study areas. We're going to recommend and then kind of work with the city elsewhere. So maybe a possible swale program. We kind of talked about, how important swales are. So maybe we can look at installing a swale program wherever we can capture water off of the roadway into these swales. We're going to try to, implement that. Tree wells, like some of these next few features are good. If there's developments coming through, we can work with the developers and encourage them to use certain features that we're going to call like a low impact design, that maybe they can implement these to help with the, the runoff on the city road. Maybe that development can take some of that runoff between the tree wells. Surface features could be like a permeable pavement. Underground storage chambers, that's usually on the private side. That's another option. I know a resident talked about previously stormwater parks. It wasn't viewed in any of these particular areas, but we are recommending if the city does have, park improvements coming in the near future, that's something that maybe they can implement and investigate if that's a good feature that can be used for those parks. And I know another resident previously talked about canal dredging. So we do recommend, the next item, agency coordination. So the city should still work with the county, FDOT, South Florida Water Management District, who owns the canals. The Army Corps also permits and oversees the canals and a lot of the pump stations that go on in the canal system. So kind of working with those to see what improvements can be done between canal dredging or monitoring the pumps, how much flow is traveling to our canals from the upstream cities. So the city is actively working with a lot of these agencies already, but we're just kind of noting, these improvements can occur still, in the future between that coordination. And I guess what I was talking to previously, kind of that's what's next. So first off, we do have kind of just a general guide that's going to kind of summarize some of this, but really just look at, for the residents, what is stormwater? What can you do to help? what can, what are we looking for? Just a general guide. We were hoping to distribute it today, but it's just not quite ready. So it will be coming out very soon, and we'll be throwing that on the city's website. And then obviously we talked about that funding. So that is our next step, finding that funding plan. How are we going to pay for all of this? We got to look at, reviewing the city's current stormwater utility fee, see if any improvements need to be done there. We got to look at their current operation and maintenance costs. How much, do they currently spend? How much are they going to need to, maintain these future systems? So we're going to look at a lot of that and kind of create that funding plan moving forward for the city. And we're also looking at, policy reviews. So for example, I kind of mentioned previously that low impact design. If we could work with the adjacent neighboring developments and, encourage them to use certain features that may help with that infiltration. So it doesn't just discharge all to city right away or canals. If we can, infiltrate all of a lot of that stormwater and manage it effectively, that'll help, how much is flowing into the cities and adjacent neighborhoods. All right. So with that, I guess we'll jump back to questions.
If you all don't mind, we're recording this for the city, to add to the city website and for the individuals online. If you don't use the microphone, they cannot hear your question in the recording. It won't come out in the recording as well. So if you just give us a minute, raise your hand, and we'll come around to you.
Yeah, and we'll take the room's questions first, and then we'll jump online. But if you do have a question online, just write it into the chat.
First, before I make a statement and ask some questions, I didn't see where you addressed what's going on between the current project, phase one, from 7th Street going out toward Sheridan Street. Could you clarify what the current situation is? Because I've heard some distressing news, and I just want to make sure what I heard is correct before I make my comments.
So this doesn't look at the current projects. I don't know if you guys want to speak on the current southeast. I'm guessing you're talking about, the southeast drainage project. This is more citywide. We investigated and modeled the entire city, and we excluded that area just because that there's a current project going on right now.
I don't understand. What does that mean?
We did not design it. So I'd like the city to, you want to come up there?
Yeah. I have a few dozen questions.
Perfect. Okay. I know there's a lot going on. My name's Sean Shutton. I'm the Senior CIP and Grants Administrator for the city. Sean Shutton, Senior CIP and Grants Administrator for Public Services, Dania Beach. And you're referencing specifically southeast drainage, or the southeast area from 7th Street to Sheridan. As you're aware, there is a construction project occurring, and that's phase one is occurring right now. Phase two is in final design development. Final design development? Design, correct. It is happening. Phase two? Yes. The final design will be completed in approximately 2 weeks.
From the city engineers is that we're going to be connected to it, but nothing done.
Correct. So for the phase two design, the area that you're speaking of south of 7th Street, there will be connection points on 7th Street.
But no new pipe or anything.
We do not have new piping being installed south of 7th Street, but there are connections to phase two of the design.
What in the world is just a connection going to do for us? That we have the same old pipe as everybody else, and we have everything the same. We're not being connected. Our phase one of our 6 buildings, when we had the 24 inches of rain, we had nearly $6 million in damage. Our little block, 6 buildings, nearly $6 million. And that doesn't count the tragedy and people's living conditions. Addie will tell you about her story later. Why are we being excluded?
And I'll say this, the flooding challenges are great in the city. As far as the reason why we stopped at 7th Street, the design decisions were made prior to my tenure. However, we, like I said, we are connecting to your area. I apologize for all
Yeah,
of,
okay, you're making
yeah.
a connection.
correct.
Okay, I got that. You're just hooking our old pipes to the new pipes down the street. Basically, that's what
Correct.
you're
We
doing.
do expect there to be
And
some
you're calling that a
alleviation.
new phase.
We're not calling that a phase. We have to begin and end the project at some point. So Southeast, phase 1 and 2 is from 3rd Street to 7th Street. So that's going to be the project phase 1 to 2.
Are they gonna replace the pipes?
Correct. Pipes are being replaced in
Oh, no,
phase 1 and phase 2.
From 3rd to 7th, are they gonna replace the pipes?
That's currently in progress. In phase 1, yes, with new drainage
Okay, right.
structures.
What about from 7th to Sheridan or?
So 7th to Sheridan, yeah, correct. That will be, a full design will have to be implemented for that area. So
When?
that's a,
Okay. 'cause
Yeah. Phase 2, when phase 2 ends, which has to end by the fall of 2026. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
Phase 2 will be ending around the fall of 26, fall to the
When's it gonna
end.
start? When is
In
phase-
June of this
Oh, that's
year.
just the connection.
That's phase 2. That's nothing to do with the connection is part of that. But what your concern is, we want to design a second part of phase 2, almost like a phase 3, including your area. That has not been designed yet. We have to finish phase 2 before we design.
So phase 2 is just the connection. You're saying
You could-
phase 3?
Yeah, there's going to be a phase 2. It's going to be more like, not going to be a full phase, but it'll be addressing that area that you're concerned about. It hasn't been designed, has not been designed yet. Hasn't been designed yet.
So we're years off before you do it.
Probably a couple of years.
Okay, because
Two and a half to, I would say 2.5 to 3 years to be
my
realistic.
comments are going to be salient. I do have some
Mhm.
comments to make.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
We are going to be included in phase 3, you're saying?
Yes.
That part of the
We want-
area,
yes, we
where
want
the
to ex-
Olson School is,
right,
and all. That's
Yeah,
what we're talking
yeah.
about.
We want to extend
Exactly, 'cause I'm new here, so I don't
yes,
know
to the best way to put it is this. Southeast Drainage Project, as was originally envisioned, was phase 1 and phase 2. We recognize your issue. We've been recognizing it. You're talking about it for over a year. We want to have a phase 3 or a phase 2A, you want to call it that, to go further into your area. That has to be designed, and we'll find the funding. The funding is always people say funding. We'll get the funding, whether it's grants, the stormwater fees that we collect, but that's a little bit further away because remember, we're not even done with phase 2 until the end of 26. So we could probably start your area sometime, even if it's around the same time, starting in late 26. It might take us to 27. So you have to be patient.
Why wasn't it
That
included?
construction yard,
I got you. Yeah.
so that construction yard at Olson School is going to stay there until when? 2, 3,
Yeah,
4 years?
That corner?
I would say a couple of
Couple of
years.
years.
Yeah, roughly.
So in the meantime, we get stuck without getting our park, okay, because they already had the funds for our park.
Right.
So now that's postponed because of, we have to wait for what?
He's talking about the staging area.
Oh, that you get into the weeds. I don't want to speak to that now. I don't want to make a commitment on timing and the phasing there. It's good. Thank you for clarifying.
I do have one.
Yeah.
Question for you before I make some comments.
Mhm.
Why in the world, you have a staging area, all the equipment, everything there
Mhm.
right now. You're gonna move all that out, turn it into a park supposedly, that's what I heard, okay?
Mhm.
And then come back 2.5 years from now and find us, stage it again,
Well,
bring all the equipment.
Maybe
back.
not. Maybe it won't be there. We're planning phase 3 is not even in the planning
I
stage
don't
yet.
understand why you just don't bring it out to Sheridan Street now.
We can
we were promised
consider that. That's nothing that
We were promised that was gonna happen. We were promised we were
that,
gonna be
okay.
part of phase 1. We had several meetings with engineering and other people.
How long ago was
Way
that?
back when,
How long ago was that? When did that happen?
6-8 months ago. We were,
Yeah, a little longer.
Doesn't sound like it's 6 months ago.
We were supposed to be phase 1.
yeah, absolutely. We were
You were supposed to
promised,
be phase 1.
we were promised we were gonna be phase 1.
Okay.
And the understanding is they ran out of money for our section.
Listen, I'm honestly, I'm
They
not,
have funding for it right
not
now?
aware. I'm not aware of that. No.
I was the one who noticed that we weren't included. We just assumed, everybody assumed we were phase
Mhm.
1. Until I happened to take a look at the announcement very carefully in the map.
Yeah.
They weren't
At
on
the boundaries, right.
And all right, can I
Go on,
make
go
a
on,
few comments now.
go on, sure.
Hopefully that'll
Oh,
spur
but
things
do you have
along.
them, you give them the mic, so.
Okay, the first thing I want to mention is I live directly across from the old Olson
The old
School.
also, okay.
Okay, and when we get heavy rain, there's a low point. There's no drain, there's no storm drains at the low point. It's where the old driveway used to be. It's directly across from the entrance to our building, okay? When we get heavy rains and the kids are leaving school, no exaggeration, they're walking through up to here, up to their underwear in the water. I've seen them, they got the chain link fence. I've seen kids trying to do like a rock climb to
Avoid
get
the water.
across because there's no drainage and there's big puddles.
We can make a note of that.
Now, in our little section, we have 180 condos. All of the 45 on the first floor units were flooded, totally flooded. As I mentioned, we had about $6 million of damage. 6 million. That's the total price of some of these sections.
Yes.
And we're not part of this. Why? I don't understand it. We had the heaviest concentration of damage.
Part of the reason, I think early on when these things were planned, these projects, that is that you have your own on-site, you have a lake, you have pumps, you have a drainage system.
We don't have pumps. There's no pumps. We have a lake and it fills up very quickly.
I mean, not pumps.
Well,
You have a conveyance system, I'm sorry, into the lake. My bad.
Let me
You're right, correct.
clarify that
No
for you.
pumps, yeah.
Our building, our group of buildings were the first ones put up. After they were put up, I don't know if it's the town or the builder or whoever decided that we're too low. So we have a small lake by comparison. The next two phases going down 7th Terrace have much bigger lakes. And what they did is they dug out the lake and used that to raise the buildings by about 2 feet or so. So we're the ones, the lowest lying and the most susceptible to damage. Waiting 2.5 years is not acceptable. We had a rainstorm last year. We had some flooding.
Really big pressure. I know. I realize that.
Okay. And people, we're really upset in our section. The other two sections are you're what, building 11?
Yeah, I'm right across from.
Yeah.
Building 11. And you build, what number is your building, sir?
We're building 5.
5
We're
and
building
11.
on the first one.
5,
That's the second.
5 and then 11 is the gentleman in the green shirt.
I had the city out, showed them with tissue paper when there was a flooding out there. I threw tissue paper in our drain, okay, on our property. And from Olson School in the street, it just ran into our drain, goes right in our lake. They said, "Oh, that can't happen." I said, "Well, here's the tissue."
I think I heard about that story. Yes.
And I showed them 3 or 4 times, and they all denied it. They said that can't happen. And I showed them, look, it's happening. That's why we thought we were in the first phase.
Right.
We were promised we were in the first.
I had understood because there's homes at the other end. They did the homes first. We're left in the dark again. Now we got a staging area with construction that Lord knows what year they're going to start that project for our park. That has been in the process for years.
I'll talk to Parks and Recreation about that.
I do have some more comments about that too. Now, it's really dirty. I mean, every day our cars are covered with, at least in our building, we're covered with dirt. The dirt gets in the apartments. All this is happening and we're not part of it.
Yeah.
That's really, really distressing. But I'm going to skip this one for now. Here's something I hope you address with the county. I understand that as soon as phase 1, maybe it's going to be after phase 2, they're going to build a park where the old Olson School.
That's my understanding, yes.
I took a really, really close look at the grading. And from 2nd Avenue, you can look up and you can see that whole field, several blocks worth of that field, all slopes down to 11th Terrace. We're getting all the runoff from that huge area, and we're not part of the project. You know, when they do the park, they've got to do something with the grading. Now, also, across the street in the school, there's a swale there,
Okay.
maybe two. We were informed that the swale is there, but it's not doing anything because it's full of debris, and the county doesn't want to take the time to clear it. I don't know if it's been done since.
The
But
county is telling that it's the school's problem,
Right.
not the county.
We're gonna address that. We're gonna get into that
Yes,
with the
that's
school.
what they said,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
But, you know,
Across the school, correct? The two swales,
right
two
across,
swales,
yeah,
one or
right
two
across
swales.
From,
Okay.
just for the two school properties, the old school and the meat, there's one or two swales there.
Okay.
And last I knew, they were full of debris. They may have cleaned it since, I don't know, because.
We'll definitely look into that.
Right,
yeah.
the
Wow.
water in the street right away. The kids
Well,
have
yeah.
problems. We call cars because the cars go down. We get it into our driveway and from our driveway into the house. And that's what happened on that April storm where the street came in and the lake came in. We
The
had,
cars go by and
right.
there's waves.
I saw
I've
ducks.
seen that.
I have a storm in the back. The
Wait.
water had to be this high and you saw the ducks swimming on top. Now, that's a lot of water.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm gonna, could you, I'd like to hear your story of what happened after the flood and how you
Yeah,
had to
because
live.
then they came in and they told us how, you know, of course, how they're gonna take care of everything. I'm here only 3 years, so I don't know too much about what's going on with the thing, but they told us that we were gonna get covered, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. So they came and demolished everything, you know, I mean, all 7 floors were demolished underneath, 4 feet high, because it's, whatever they said. So we did that. And then they come and they tell us that because of FEMA, because of this, because of that, we lost a lot of money. I lost all my savings. I don't have a penny left to get back in there. I have a disabled husband who I had to rent an apartment upstairs at $1,500 a month and get nothing in return. Okay, and then try to fix the place down. Everything had to have permits. Everything had to have this. You know, all this junk that because of this water, it came from the street right in through my front 2 doors and from the back, right through the storm door. But it came like up through the thing, whatever it was. It was a lot of water. So now every time it rains, I get a nervous condition in my stomach because the lake is going to come in because we are lower. And now you're being told that we don't have the drainage now, which I thought was going to happen.
What we're gonna try to do is before phase 2 is even halfway, we'll start the design and maybe even some work. It could be the work on the phase 3. Let's call it phase 3 on you. Could be while phase 2 is going. Doesn't have to wait till the end of. For example, phase 2 will start construction practically when phase 1 is still going towards the end. So they could overlap. So
but just
I say 2
connecting it.
years or 2.5. I don't.
But
Don't hold me
just-
that. Don't hold me to that month. To that.
Just connecting our old system to the new system.
That's
isn't
something. It's
do
going to
anything
help a little
for
bit.
us.
A little bit. It's gonna help a little bit. We don't know how much.
A little bit's not gonna help.
I know you want to help a lot. I get it. I understand. We understand that.
$6 million.
That's a lot. That's a lot. That's what happened to you is.
What about the school? The school too, the kids. Why are the kids being put
No.
through that? They walk, a lot of them walk. And they had to go right through the water. And then this car stalled. And there's, you know, trucks, but every time a truck passes by, it's like having the ocean hit your door. I mean, it was terrible. It was a very bad experience. I tell you, I get very nervous now every time it rains.
I do not blame you. I don't blame you.
Who knew that this was supposed to be? And when I moved there 3 years ago, it was not flooded area. I looked into it. You did not have it posted as a flooded area. Now it's a flooded area.
We were downgraded or upgraded rather from a I forgot what the class was. I think class 1 was the worst. I think we went to a class 2 or something like that. But and then we got.
Oh, well, no, that happened. That really doesn't make sense.
But now I didn't get a flood insurance, so there we go. No flood insurance because I bought my house to, you know. I didn't have a
Different time,
mortgage.
different rating. I understand.
So, you know, it's very, very hard. Now to hear this is very upsetting to me.
We're really
Very
gonna
upsetting.
work on getting you guys going on a phase 2A or a phase 3.
Ask the people there. Ask everyone that's there.
Let's
what
make sure we do
happened.
that. Let's gotta get that
Plus,
going.
they lost all their cars.
Oh, yeah, plus cars were lost, like
Yeah,
crazy.
so on the motor got it.
On the other side, on 10th Avenue, a lot of cars came, I mean, underwater. They were underwater. Most of our cars, what we did was we moved most of them, but There were a lot of
Those
cars.
were, that stay behind, yeah, because the water.
Let me just make a comment.
Okay.
When I was in college, I worked for the Metropolitan District
Okay.
in Hartford. They were putting up a water pollution plant, and I was working for them as an inspector. The one thing I did learn, among other things, of course, is that you can make changes. And sometimes it's just as simple as doing an addendum or a change order, and you can get it done. We're only 4 blocks away. 4 blocks. How big of a deal would it be to run the new pipes 4 blocks?
They have no funds.
Oh, come on, look at all these projects they're doing.
This is projected. You think that price is gonna stick 4 years from now? That's gonna be.
Well, no, but it'd be cheaper to do it now than 4 years from now.
Yes.
Let's see, let's look at what you're saying. Let's take a look at that. We'll take a look at that so we can extend it. Yeah. Yeah, we can do it. Let's talk to the SP. Yeah, okay. We're gonna talk to the designers to see they can, that's, so we'll do our best. I cannot really promise you right here and that, but I will do our best to incorporate you in the design.
We're going to take a break for these questions. We have 2 online, Jennifer, for you if you'd like to answer them.
Yes, of course.
So the first one is Southwest 14th Street between Federal Highway and Southwest 2nd Avenue. Is it in the study area? And how can they find out? The NFHL viewer shows it as a flood zone, and it does indeed flood. Southwest 14th Street between Federal Highway and Southwest 2nd Avenue.
Okay, so between Federal, sorry, is that?
Yep. Federal Highway and Southwest 2nd Avenue.
Is that east? Sorry. I believe that's near the area that they were just talking about. So we will post all of these maps with all these figures on, with the city on their website. So I believe, yeah, right now we do not have a planned CIP in that area. It did not trigger, again, with that formula that we talked about of that highest flooded area. We had to look at and prioritize, which roadways were the most vulnerable. So we're not saying, other areas don't flood, just these particular areas and neighborhoods flooded the most. So that's where we had to prioritize. So we could look at this street further, and it might be included and adjacent to the southeast neighborhood that they were just talking about.
Okay, and then for further information on that, they can check Dania's website.
Yes, so this will be posted, and then if you have any other concerns, beyond this, I would, coordinate with the engineering team and the engineering staff at the city and let us know of those concerns, and we could see, what else we could do.
Okay, the second question was related. In FEMA's National Flood Hazard Layer Viewer, they're trying to find the historical classification. They wanted to know if there were online resources, so.
I believe so, through the FEMA's website. Yes, there should be all that information on the FEMA's website. Yeah, we really just looked at our model results and tried to identify, again, which basins were the most vulnerable and identify improvements in those basins.
Okay. One more. This individual, Sandra, lives in a townhome complex at Northeast 1st Street and Northeast 6th Court. They're listed as public roads within Broward County property appraisers. Sandra's mentioning she has 3 drain wells on Northeast 6th Court that do not drain properly, where water builds up in some areas over 8 inches.
Yes, sorry, I don't have, I could jump back. I think that's part of one of our CIPs. Let me jump back to Point Sienna. Sorry, I don't have every street memorized here. But yes, I believe that is very close to this neighborhood. So that will be part of a future CIP project area.
To let you guys know, just a handful of us, we probably be representing 1,800 people just in Meadowbrook alone. It's not that they're all here, but they're not aware of a lot of things.
Yeah, we don't get flyers, we don't get notices. We don't get anything. I think it's all flyer from you guys.
Yeah, this meeting was more of, it was, we informed the city that we were going to have this workshop. So the city, I believe, provided those notices, but this is for citywide planning. This isn't about a current active project. And that's why I said previously, not to say it's excluded, but we didn't look at it because there's already a city project planned in this neighborhood. So we, knowing that they're already investing a lot of money in that location, we were trying to identify the other locations throughout the city that needs improvements.
We saw now on your part is just you're designating. What we're talking about is not in that plan because they're handled.
Correct. There's already another city project. Correct. We're looking at the future. What other projects can we look at in the future because this other project was already occurring?
This is already occurring and they're responsible for it.
Yes, so I would go to the city engineering team about your concerns, which is, I think they have all of your concerns and information, so they're going to see what they can do for you.
So would you recommend we all come to a city meeting, the next meeting that they have to
something
complain
that-
to the city?
That directs
I
to
mean,
us.
wouldn't they have an engineer in the
How do
audience?
we have a meeting?
Well, that is the engineering team. Sean is one of
How
the,
do we have a meeting with you guys with the concerns?
Well,
of
he
the-
would have to appeal it to the city,
Oh,
and then they would have to discuss it, and then they would get back to us.
I mean, the meeting that you're requesting,
Residents here.
right, I understand that there is a large quantity, but I know there's a formality to it. Let me
Yeah.
get your contact information and let you know exactly how to get the audience that you're looking for. And I'll work to provide that information to you and we can go from there regarding your concerns.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
okay, any other questions in the audience outside of this active project? Yes.
Hi, I just want to ask a specific street. I live there. I have a single home. It's Southwest 24th Avenue, which is west of 95, near Tropical Acres, the steakhouse. It's an old steakhouse. Okay, so it's Southwest 24th Avenue. I just want to check to see if that street it's included in this master plan, or I assume that I have to check also with the city, with the engineer, with the team to ask them if they have to do. But in this specific master plan,
I do not believe that is, I'm trying to go back to my overall map here. Give me a second. I do not believe that is in our area.
so what you present tonight, it's something that is it's a plan that is gonna be done, but there are other projects that they are running right now.
Correct. So yeah, this is looking, like I said, that we did a model of the whole city and we're trying to prioritize where, the heaviest amount of flooding, the longest time that it floods, the length of the roads, which neighborhoods are the most vulnerable.
My specific
Yeah. So not
cut
to
the
say
time
that
down.
yours doesn't flood, it was just maybe not triggered as the highest level, but we do encourage you to, still voice your concerns.
Yes.
And we could still work with the city to see, there might be some isolated cases where we could just do some smaller projects in the near future.
So in this case, I have to address to the city, and then they can do something, or you as of the future companies that they're gonna work, or how it works.
Yeah, so I would let us know your concern. We'll collect everything, give it to the city, and just let them know, there are other concerns beyond, what's in our plan, and just to see what they can do. If there's maybe some, like I said, maybe it's an isolated, you could just add a few pipes. It can be a much smaller dollar figure.
Okay,
And maybe
so
there's
my
something.
last question is to address to the city. Which department or which person can I get a business card, or where to come to ask? And that I was here for a permitting, so I asked, but of course, it's a daily routine, so the lady didn't know how to help me. If it's a specific department, a specific name that I can come and address my situation, because I'm not in that big of a mess, but I have the bad experience, the same like you guys. So, but I'm just one house, and it wasn't that bad before they built the new community in the back of the tropical acres. They build a new community, which is the Whispering Wolves. So over there, the elevation, because it's a new construction, so they elevate too much. People on the street, they said that they never saw something like that, just because it was a field. So that was empty at that time before the construction. So all the water from these two streets, 24th, 25th, drained there. So right now, of course, we have two new communities, and those two streets are cut in the middle. So all the water, it's coming over there. So specific my house, can you believe it? It's just one house on two streets that gets the most of the water. And I have on the clouds all the videos and the photos. Unbelievable.
Okay.
But I didn't get in the mail nothing like a flyer. I was here at the city. I didn't put pressure because I just asked. I was thinking. But I get an email. That's why I'm here today. So if I didn't pay attention, I could lose this meeting. But I thought normally after that big storm that somebody is coming, at least, I don't know, from the city, that we came, we measured, we did, or we know your situation, we saw, because there were a lot of investigations over there in the area. It happened one day for me that I saw a pickup truck with two guys measuring elevation. So I ran to them and I asked them, and they said that the city, they have a master plan or something, but this was like 8-9 months ago. So that made me curious to come to this meeting. And right now I understand that my street is not.
Correct. Yeah. So right now, and you're south of Grit.
Last question, and that's it. It's somebody from the city that I can come based on my address of the house, and of course they can come and measure and see it's
And just to confirm, are you south of Griffin Road? You said?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
24th.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll just to note it in the meeting minutes, and we'll make sure we coordinate with the city. We'll definitely still let the city know of all of these concerns that maybe are outside of these. So yeah, it might just be a more, like I said, an isolated incident, but if they can do something in the meantime that doesn't, we're still moving forward with this planning, but there can still be other projects in the meantime.
Okay.
Any other,
Emergency with 11 Ferris in your project, where Olson School is.
So like I said, we didn't analyze that area because there was already a city project being designed in that area. So we did not, further evaluate that particular area.
I think, Jennifer, if you don't mind, if we have address specific locations, Jennifer can assist you when the meeting ends. We have individuals online that have other questions and concerns, more project specific. So if you have an address that you would like to look into, if you don't mind sticking around once the meeting ends, but for the individuals online, just to prevent this back and forth. We do have one last question from Brenda online. She wants to ask if we ran the FEMA modeling as well, the flooding designated locations areas that FEMA also introduces. Was that part of this project as well?
So we know of where FEMA identified, they have their certain zones, if you will, but we didn't really take that into consideration just because we were doing our own modeling that's really more detailed, I guess. So FEMA looks at, statewide type of model. So we were more looking, specific at individual city-owned streets. So ours is a little bit more detailed. So we're aware of those flood zones, but we're more looking at, what the model results show. And again, that classification to know which ones are the most vulnerable that we need to address.
Great. Any other stormwater master plan related questions?
And feel free to stay after. I can, discuss more detailed questions. Any others online?
I think we are good online.
All right. Well, no, I understand it's a very hard topic. I know there's a lot of rain in Florida, South Florida. We're stuck here in this area right by the beach, which is beautiful, but because it's a bowl, really. There's nowhere for that water to go. We need to find those solutions. We need to start investing, start building, and making a resilient, investment into our infrastructure. So we definitely appreciate all of the concerns you have. We'll stick around and we'll see what else we can do and implement moving forward. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.